Hi everyone, I'm Chandni and welcome to my show. I hope you are all enjoying the summer air. I know the heat really gets to you, but personally, I've had an overdose of cold winds and freezing temperatures in the past few months, so I'm really welcoming the summer with open arms. Now, coming back to the point as to why you all have tuned in, my guest for the day. She's one of the very first people I interviewed for my show. So, very grateful for this beautiful singer who agreed to come on the show even before I went live. Now, you must be wondering, if I interviewed her before my show was live, how is it that you haven't heard her already? All credits going to technology. I lost the recording. Luckily, though, I stumbled upon a backup a few weeks ago, which I also thought I lost. But yay, we are here today. Now, about the singer who's on my show today. Her name is Parveen. She's a Hindustani classical singer who created an audience for herself in France at a very young age. Yes, that was what was intriguing about her when I discovered her as an artist. An Indian classical singer who has established herself in Europe and successfully done so many shows across the continent. So, what is Parveen's story? Come, let's hear. So, first of all, thank you so much. I was really looking forward to this for a long time, and finally it's happened.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's start with getting to know you. You can tell us all about your childhood, your education, your life before you took on to the stage.
So I was born to a French mother and an Indian dad. So I was always between both cultures, but I grew up in Jaipur.
Okay.
So I was in Jaipur like any other kid, but the summers I would come to visit my French family, my mother's side. So I always had a connection with France and spoke French at home with my mother. So yeah, it was very Indian, but at the same time always an opening towards Europe, France. And but I always had music in my life because I think I started taking my first music lessons when I was 6 or so I don't even remember properly. But yeah, so a very normal, nice childhood, but along with some traveling and music, yeah.
So you said you began your training very early. So
Yes, exactly.
Did you pick this art form? Were you exposed to it via some family member? Or how did you get into this art form, and who was your guru? Who did you start off with?
So my dad is also a musician, so he's a composer but also a tabla player mostly. So I always had music at home. Even as a kid, he was touring, like it was his job, so he was touring all across the world and coming home with musicians from everywhere, whether they are Rajasthani locals, Indian musicians, or also musicians from abroad. So as a kid, I always had musicians around me. So yeah, I mean, I was into it even before I knew how to speak, And so I think I did sing a bit here and there, but I didn't really know what to pick. And I think my dad himself wanted to be a singer. I think that's the secret story, but I think that's what he wanted. So he put me to singing. Like I didn't really choose, but it was what I was doing anyways. So yeah, that's how I chose singing. But it could have been any other instrument also, Like my brother, he picked up tabla.
Okay. So did you also experiment with any instruments, or did you just stick to singing?
I think singing, yeah. At one point I was just fiddling around instruments, but yeah, singing I'd say.
Okay.
And how did I start? So yeah, at first I was singing a bit at home with my dad only, even younger than 6. And then at 6, 7, I was introduced to my formal music teacher who was called Leelavati Adsude, and she used to be my father's guru. And I think my dad also had a dream of, that his kids would learn music from his own guru. So that's how it started, and it was having a grandma at home.
That sounds very sweet.
Yeah.
So now let's get to that one moment. Was there a particular moment you had an epiphany that, this is what I want to do. I want to perform and fill the room with my beautiful voice.
So it wasn't that evident to me. So I loved singing. I loved spending time with my music teachers and singing at home, but I was very shy as a kid. But my dad understood that I had to be, forced a little bit to be on stage. So actually how it started was he took me for the first time for a singing competition around the same age, I think 6, 7. And so I had to sing on stage, and it has just been like 2-3 months I was training, and I hope to fail so that I would never be asked to be on stage again.
Oh.
But I turned out to be something like, I don't know, second or third something. So I had to, so then it became another reason for me to continue. And yeah, I continued that my entire childhood. So somehow I became confident on stage. So initially, really, it was not my cup of tea.
So was there any particular age or any particular competition that you thought that, maybe I'm going to walk on this path?
So I never really liked competitions. I started liking being on stage, but the competitive bit was very... I didn't understand the concept, because especially those days, the age groups were very big. So for example, I would be competing with people who were 15 while I was 7, For me, even at that time, and even today, doesn't make any sense. So, but there was this particular competition. At that time, there were no reality shows and all. But there was a competition that's called Surtarang, that's Sangam Kala Group, that's quite famous in, singing. So I really wanted to win that, and I did. When I was 14, I won the national, all India competition that was in Delhi at Talkatoora Stadium. So for me, that was it. I won, and after that, I was like, I'm never ever going to go to any competition anymore.
So now that we know about your roots and your lot of exposure to artists from all over India per se.
Yeah.
So now we'll steer towards your international journey. So how did you begin your journey in Europe? When did you move? And then when did you make that solid mark?
So as I told you, I used to go for summer vacations in France every year. And around when I was, I think 14, 15 or so, my dad said, it would be nice that when you come to France, let's do some small concerts. So you meet people and meet other musicians. So at that time, he organized with my brother small gigs at people's house, people who loved Indian music, or very small halls and all that. So that started my exposure to concerts in the West, I'd say. We also went to Copenhagen, we visited Europe through music. And that for me was the best thing ever, because I would be singing, meeting new musicians and discovering new places, And now that I think of it, my dad was very smart, because that gave me a taste of doing this as a career later. And I started it as my career, I think when I was about 19, 20. And at that time, I was already collaborating with French artists and jazz musicians, but once a year, it just used to be small shots, or when they would come to India. So there were 2 musicians who came to India from France and really liked my singing. And so they were like, let's do a gig in France. We have 3 concerts. Would you like to come? So I was like a 20-year-old. I was like, yeah, I'll come. And we started performing, and we got so many concerts after that I decided to stay. And that's how I made music my career. So it wasn't really planned, it's like destiny.
Okay. But is it common that concerts at people's houses and halls and all of that, is it very common over there to do this?
So I wouldn't say it's common, but there are 2 things. First of all, my dad, he lived in France for 20 years and he worked on Indian classical music here, Indian classical and folk. So I had a backdrop, it was easier for me. I didn't have to start from nothing. And secondly, also here in France especially, I've never seen such respect and such, fascination toward old Indian art forms. But it's not only music, it's dance, it's paintings, architecture. So definitely they are very curious about all this, and that's what I still am doing,
Yeah, they are. They are known for their art and their love for art, no?
Absolutely.
You already said that your dad has sort of given you a base. His network was strong. He even understood the international audience well.
Yeah.
So now when you collaborated with people, when you were going on these tours or featuring with your jazz artists and all of that, how did you all get an amalgamation of both these genres of music? So was there a team effort involved, or was it your dad's brainchild?
So my dad, I never performed much with my dad, only sometimes, but he would just open the door, be like, hey, do this, do that, but that's it. He was never telling me what to do or be there during collaborations. And also, just to differentiate, my dad worked a lot on folk music and traditional music, while when shifted here, I was more into collaboration. modern collaborations. So my first band was more like pop rock music with Indian singing. Though I was still doing Indian classical at some places, my collaborations were more modern. And for example, even later in life, when I started to perform with my brother, he does tabla and beatboxing. So beatboxing is more of hip hop, So everything was a mix of efforts and collaboration with the artists in front.
Okay.
And in 10 years, I have met a lot of artists. Yeah. So a lot of experiences and a lot of countries. So that's really nice.
So now can you share some stories of that? Any stories that come to your mind?
So I was invited with quite many artists, but the few ones that stood out and are important to me. So it was the first band I came with. So that's how I discovered the stage in France, like proper music festivals and, clubs and concert halls. So that was my base for everything. And because it was rock was a genre that I really didn't know. So I was singing in Indian classical, but it was the first time I had to sing, standing, for example. And that was quite a different thing for me. So small things like that. Other thing that really stands out was a collaboration we did with French and Arabic musicians. And we toured for it for 3 years. It was called Lira. And we went to like Morocco and Tunisia and like other parts of the world as well, apart from Europe. And we performed with them in India also. All these bands came to India with me because I wanted, the Indian audience to share it as well. Mm-hmm. And then the third that really stands out is the band with my brother. So we had been performing since we were kids together, but never really made it a project, And after COVID, when everything stopped, we were living together again, and we let's do something together, but with the intent of it, not just, because we're brothers and sisters. So we made a band where we try to explain our stories. So it starts, with Indian classical, how it is with tabla voice. And as it evolves, it starts including like beatboxing, modern songs. So it's a bit of our story. And I think of all Indians, like we have deep roots and cultures, but at the same time, we're open to the world and like to mix and create new things.
Wow, there's so many questions. I'm just lost
so many
now.
information also.
There's a lot that you've done. I feel my questions are not going to do justice to the exposure you've got. My God.
No, I was indeed very, very lucky and curious also. It's something I really like. So whenever I have the opportunity, I take it because for me, it's the biggest thing music can offer.
Okay, so let me just direct the question that I came to. How does the business of these things work? What's the business side of it like?
Every band is different. Every collaboration is different. For example, some bands didn't have an agent, so I was dealing with it on my own, trying to find, especially in the beginning, I used to find gigs on my own, travel on my own and all. But nowadays, I have an agent, for example, with my brother, so they take care of everything. If you have an agent, then it's easier, but sometimes you don't have, and it's also fun, it's different.
It's a learning, right? I guess.
Yeah, it's learning, and it's also more free, so you can go to smaller places, and you start obviously with something less organized, but that's how you learn.
Connecting with bands, of course, that's a personal thing. But when you travel to these places, when you go to these clubs, did you find these places yourself?
Yeah. So it depends, but I did a lot also. So basically, in France, everything is much more in advance than in India. I'd say that's the difference. So it's at least 6 months to a year in advance. Mm-hmm. So I would connect with the concert places, festivals a year or 6 months prior, and usually organize a tour around. That's what was good, You try to, find other gigs close by. I remember once we had a gig in Switzerland. So instead of doing just a one shot, we decided to, play every day. It was like a marathon we did. So every day we had to find a place. And it was extraordinary because for 10 days we were playing every day in a different place. And we ended up in such small, cute French villages that I would have never been otherwise. But it's just a choice. So this is one thing, for example. Another way of doing it is very organized with an agent who books your tickets. You just have to come, play and go. Everything is organized. So it really depends where you are in your career and what do you actually want to do.
I'm glad you brought out this difference between the European business environment and that's actually what I wanted to ask you. The differences that you see in performing for a European audience vis-a-vis an Indian audience, and also now that we are talking about the business of things, what have you experienced?
So a major difference between the Indian and the European scene, I'd say, is that Indian music is mostly, like not completely, but mostly private led. It's individuals or companies who pay for it. In Europe, it's mostly state funded, like the state gives money to halls to pay for it. The fact that it's private makes it less organized, let's say. In France, because it's the state, it has to be organized and everything has to be produced and all. So that's a very big difference. There's a big concert going culture in Europe, and there'll be concerts every week, and the program comes out like 6 months before so that people can book their tickets and all. In India, there's still very few concert places like that. And what happens, even if there are, it's like some individuals will rent out that concert hall and organize something there. It's not going to be the state or the hall itself organizing things. Very rarely, only in very big cities. In France, in every small place, village, town, city, you have this. So that's a big difference. And in India, there are more like events around, for example, weddings and festivals. I mean, festivals have come up a lot in the last 10 years. That's very, very, very nice. And more like it's around, it depends on people and organizations much more. I think that's the biggest difference. That doesn't happen much.
I think you want to say commercial, and it's
yeah.
What you're trying to say? Yeah, probably.
But yeah, it's just a different way of selling it. Also in India, for example, you have to fill places. If you don't sell out, then you might lose money because you funded it from your pocket.
Correct.
This concept doesn't exist in Europe because anyways it's the state who pays for it. Right. So even if there's no one, there's no big risk. So what happens is that people take risks more. They'll invite maybe more talented but less famous people because let's face it, it's true. Like some people are amazingly talented but are not good at business or not very famous. So this is the biggest difference, I'd say.
You brought up, that the state or the smaller cities also in France are supporting art and, conducting concerts and all of that. Has the government ever funded any of your productions, or have you ever been approached that, we will fund your production and can you do this? If you like it, then...
Yeah, so it's never directly the government funding it. It's always through, for example, the government is going to give the money to a hall, a concert hall. Then that concert hall becomes responsible. Okay. Or it's going to give it to whatever, every hall has their budget from the state. So it's never going to be directly the state telling you, I want this. It's always going to be through some kind of entity that is underneath. So like a cultural center or a hall or a festival, that's how it works. Okay. So yeah, definitely I've done that a lot of times. But every time it depends. It's like the festival decides or the hall to whom they want to give their support and whose work they find the most interesting.
Okay. Now I'm going to address the elephant in the room. I want to understand the financial aspect of it, because I'm sure you've been an independent person for many years. I think you started very, very early in life. And this is mainly I want to just give a reality check to aspiring singers or, someone who thinks that, maybe a European market is a more fruitful or a more amicable place for me to be in terms of financial security. So that's my idea of getting into this.
Okay, so I was quite lucky, honestly, because I started, wherever I started working at 20, I was so into it that I started earning money at that time, and since then I've been thankfully independent, and obviously it's you can have as many limits as you want. The sky is the limit as an artist also, but at least being decently living and quite happy and not counting. So that's for me a big thing, and just living off your art is massive, And otherwise the big difference between both countries, I'd say, is you probably earn more in India if you count every music gig, but there'll be less and you have no security. While in Europe you'll be taxed more, so you'll have maybe lesser money at the end of a gig because it's taxed, but then you have the healthcare, you have a lot of support, you have help for everything. So in the end you're in a more secure position. So it's just a different way of thinking. It's one is more, you get more money each time, and the other one, I don't know, evened out across the year. I'd say that.
But then if you're saying that you get healthcare and all that support, it's just that what the country does for any citizen. It's not particularly for singers, right?
No, but they do support art a lot, as I said, in a different way. Like they fund, for example, as I said, they fund concerts and also indirectly it comes to you. And also they consider musicians as any other person who working in a job, so you get the same advantages as someone working in an office in a way, the same support, healthcare system. Like if you have kids, they can go to very good schools. Like it applies to everything, not only musicians.
That's what actually I was going to get at.
Yeah.
Singers are well paid in India compared to other artists, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Singers, definitely.
Yeah, the singers definitely. But like you said that even today people will think twice for paying for an art performance, whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess in France that's not the case. I mean,
no, that's not the case. And there's a big difference also that in India, like if you're not doing Bollywood, it's very tough to earn money. Like let's be honest about it. It's quite like apart from a few artists, but so many amazing musicians find it hard to, find ends because it's not commercially viable. Then there is not a place where you can really showcase your talent, but that's what they do. Here you have more of that. If you do something that's not commercial or not mainstream, it still works well. That's a big difference. And both places have their advantages and inconveniences. For me, it was amazing to come at that time of my life in Europe because I had more exposure here to other genres of music. So I am a person who likes that. I'm curious. That's why I liked it. For a lot of people, it doesn't make sense. But again, it's a question of like taste and personality.
Your personality.
Yeah, it's a personal choice. Yeah.
You seem to be quite a go-getter, and like I will take charge and I will do.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think it has changed. Like for example, if you compare my generation to my dad's generation, at that time, like 40 years ago in India, it was even more tough to get work. As an artist, it was not developed at all. In the last 10-20 years, it has changed a lot. So even if you look at that way, it's very different, the reasons why you go abroad or not. At that time, the West recognized Indian art forms, and that's how, Indian classical also was revalued in India in a way because the West was giving it importance. But now I don't think there's anything like that also. It's quite centered. It's looking at itself also, India, I think. And valuing art forms. But it needs to do a lot more, but still.
But I also feel like fusion, like what you've been doing or what your brother, like you mentioned, you all have been doing, that is catching eyeballs and also interest of the people rather than just...
Yeah, definitely. Whether it's in India or France actually, because in France, they're very intrigued about Indian music, and to see it, how it can be mixed with Western music intrigues them. And in India, what's happening is, I'm talking about very young people, not the youth, to see Indian traditional singing and instruments seen into another light that is more accessible to them because they've been listening to more like Western music is something also they really like, and they start listening to tabla or like other instruments more because of this,
Yes. So now again, I'm going to go back. I may be repeating myself, but I really want to know, how do you ponder on how you are going to incorporate your music into something that is very westernized. So can you give me some examples on something that you've probably worked on?
The good thing about music is you have 7 notes everywhere. It's the same notes, so that's a good thing. So that's the starting point. And then how I work usually, it's like, for example, you meet and you start to dialogue, whether it's with music or singing. You start to, collaborate, do things, and you find common bridges. And once you have found those bridges or some ambience that you really like, then you work on it and start to fix it a bit. But it's more of a dialogue. So every time you meet a new musician, it's, like speaking to someone new. You've asked questions and you reply, then you find something common, and then you find a topic that you can go through. It's more like that.
Okay, now let's do something fun before I get into the last set of my questions. I'm just going to fire some questions at you. You can just quickly answer. You don't have to give me an explanation for all of that. Unless, of course,
Okay.
you have something very interesting and I
Okay,
ask you for
okay.
an explanation.
I'm quite scared of this one.
So,
Okay.
but these are fun questions. That's just going to be something fun that we do. What's the one thing that you do before going on stage?
I always close my eyes and meditate and thank for where I am and help me to do the best. Yeah, ask for this.
Okay. Who's been the most influential support in your journey so far?
I think my father, definitely.
Okay.
And also my mom, actually, because I should not forget her. Though my dad was in front, like because he was the musician, my mom was always there to make sure I took my classes. And, you know, she was the hidden person who was always there behind making sure everything happens.
That you didn't
Like
miss
my
any of the
parents.
classes just because
Yeah,
you had to
because
go
my
out
dad
with
was not
friends.
going there. Definitely not. So both of them, yeah, my parents.
Yeah. Your favorite part of being on stage?
I think it's the only moment for me, or one of the rare one, when you forget everything around. You forget time, you forget what your life is at. You forget everything and you're just purely at that moment. And that for me is the most incredible thing about music and being on stage.
Wow, we have quite a few things in common, na? And what
Yeah.
you think. Your favorite instrument to sing with? I know you don't play an instrument, but something that you love to sing with.
So I always sing with the tanpura, though. I mean, it is an instrument for me. It is the most beautiful because it's very simple and yet it gives you everything.
Your favorite performance so far, or a memorable performance?
There are too many, but like I think more than sometimes, you know, you get even into another level of singing that you forget. So I think that is a criteria. And the second one is being with people you love. So I've done concerts like with my gurus or with my father, or like things that have touched me a lot. I think I remember those also. So it's either something musical that's extraordinary or something close to the heart.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your go-to food after a performance when you want to celebrate your performance?
Oh my god, a lot of carbs or mirchi, one of them. I either like carbs or spicy food.
Okay, lovely. So you do celebrate after a performance.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like you're on adrenaline or a euphoria rush or whatever, so you're like super happy. At least for me, for like it takes me time to come down.
Come down. That's true. Yes, very true. Now the last one. If you had you had to pick a metaphor for your art that you create or you are performing, what is that metaphor?
Air, I'd say. I don't know. I feel it's everywhere. Music is everywhere. It flows. It goes. There are no boundaries. Yeah, I think.
Lovely. Nice. Now I'm going to knock on your personal space a little, and I'd like to know what your riyaz is like.
So actually, I'll come back to the past though. I mean, for years, I did riyaz like, you know, in a very disciplined way, like not thinking, just counting the hours, and it's the most important to train your voice and, you know, like learn music. But I think nowadays I'm more into curious and creating stuff. So it's not easy. I won't say it's the easiest at all, but it's more like trying things that I haven't done before. So there are a lot of vague moments where I don't know what to do. I'm lost, but I want to create things on my own.
Okay.
Whether it's improvisation, songs, or things I haven't done before.
Are you even composing songs?
Yeah, exactly. Composing also. So I used to compose with other people during my all these years, but it still would be very, very classical based, apart from a very few songs. But now I'm trying to open up more and, you know, see what I can do different.
So do you have like a routine, as in just to sit in the day that I have to sit for these many hours, or I sit at this time of the day, or anything like
So
that?
these days I'm not into counting hours, as I told you, but there's something that I always do no matter what. For me is the Sur Sadhana. So it's the most simple thing where you just do sa for very long, you know, one note and you breathe. So that's the good thing. It helps you. It's like a meditation. It's like a om, you know. This is something that I always do no matter what. Whether I've done since I'm a kid. So I think this is the simplest and yes, the most efficient thing to do as a singer. Yeah.
Now my last thing that I'm going to ask you is whether you have a vision board. You've made a mark early, but you have so much more to offer. And I think you're, judging by what you're saying, you want to step into a new light altogether with compositions and creating things. So, what do you see yourself accomplishing in the next 5 years or 3 years?
It's quite an interesting time. So I would like to, compose and play under my name. So this is one thing I want to do, because every time it's been part of groups or Indian classical, but this time I would like to create music on my own, and I would like to perform more in India also.
Like I told you guys, I lost the original recording, so I don't have the climax. But to give you guys a closure or an update, Parveen is now happily married and is currently living in Mumbai. She's making a space for herself here in the Indian music industry. And being the courageous, confident girl that she is, I have no doubts that she'll succeed. I hope I'm leaving you with some relaxed and easygoing vibes, because that's how my interaction with Parveen was. Motivating, yet honest to God and so placid. I'll be back soon with a chat with another boss girl from the creative industry. Until then, keep raising the bar high on those positive vibes. This is Chandni saying goodbye.